afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this meeting of the Glenorchy City Council on Monday, 29th of January 2024. I'm Beck Thomas, Mayor of Glenorchy and Chairperson of this afternoon's meeting. Glenorchy City Council acknowledges the Muwinina people as the traditional owners of this land. While sadly the Muwinina people did not survive colonisation, we recognise all Tasmanian Aboriginal people as the original owners and continuing custodians of this island, Little River, Tasmania. We pay respect to Aboriginal elders past and present, and we commit to working for a city that welcomes and respects all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. Joining me here in Council Chambers this afternoon is Deputy Mayor Sue Hickey, Alderman Jan Dunsby, Councillor Molly Kendall, Alderman Russell Yaxley, Alderman Shane Alderton, Alderman Josh Cockshut, Alderman Stuart Slade and Alderman Stephen King, and Council General Manager Tony McMullen. Before we open our agenda, I take this opportunity to make a statement about workplace health and safety. Glenorchy City Council takes workplace health and safety seriously, and this includes physical and psychological safety. We have a duty to ensure that a safe workplace is provided for our employees, elected members, contractors and visitors, and members of the public who may be present at Council's workplaces. Council meetings form part of Council's workplace, and it's expected that everyone who attends Council meetings will behave in a polite and respectful manner. Council has endorsed a statement of intent setting out how we as elected members have agreed to conduct ourselves in representing the people of Glenorchy. In accordance with this, any disagreement should be expressed respectfully, remembering both during debate and in decision making that we are elected to represent and serve the people of Glenorchy and to make our city the best it can be. Finally, I note that the open section of this meeting is being live streamed and an audio-visual recording of the meeting will occur in accordance with Council's recording of Council meetings policy. Members of the public are not permitted to make their own audio-visual recordings of Council meetings. We have 18 items on our agenda this afternoon, and agenda item 1 is apologies. We have apologies this afternoon from Councillor Harry Quick. Item 2 is confirmation of the minutes of the open meeting. We have someone to move the minutes of the open meeting from the 8th of December. Moved Alderman Cockshut, someone to second. Councillor Kendall, any discussion?
No discussion, thanks, Mayor. All looks good.
No discussion. Any discussion of the minutes? Happy for me to put the vote? I'll put the motion to the vote. Please raise your hand if you're for. That's carried unanimously. Agenda item 3 is announcements by the Chair. I have a brief update for you this afternoon on the Glenorchy War Memorial Pool project. Council is expecting the Community Communication and Engagement Plan to be received from the consultants MI Global by close of business today. It is expected that this document will outline how MI Global plan to engage with our community on the future of the Glenorchy War Memorial Pool site. Council will share details and widely promote opportunities for the community to have their say as soon as possible. Agenda item 4 is pecuniary interest notification. Do we have any pecuniary interests from any elected members or staff on any of the items on today's agenda? None? Agenda item 5 is response to previous public questions taken on notice. We have a number of questions that we took on notice at the last meeting that have been answered in the agenda and then item 6 is public question time. We have 15 minutes allocated for public question time. We also did receive a number of questions on notice. Thank you to members of the public who provided their questions on notice. In preparation for this afternoon's meeting, questions from Eddie Steenbergen, 5 questions in relation to some of the motions from Council's AGM, question on notice from Mr Bradley McDougall on the LACUS report and elected members' preparation in relation to pool items. Question from Natalie Larter of Montrose in relation to the MI Global feasibility study. One from Ms Karen Forster, 3 questions in relation to Glenorchy War Memorial Pool. 12 questions from Ms Nicole Bout in relation to the Glenorchy War Memorial Pool, and the answers to those questions on notice have been outlined in the agenda. So as I said, we have 15 minutes allocated for public question time, and I'll take this opportunity to explain the procedure and rules for public question time. This is an ordinary meeting of the Council for the purpose of elected members debating and deciding on Council business. In accordance with the Local Government Meeting Procedures Regulations, Council allocates 15 minutes during each Council meeting to invite members of the public to ask questions relating to the activities of Council. Council's full policy is stated in the agenda, but I'd like to bring your attention to the following rules. Members of the public are to announce their name and residential address before asking a question, and this will be recorded in the minutes. Questions are to be put succinctly and in the form of a question, not a comment or opinion. Questions must not be inflammatory, abusive, defamatory, contain a personal attack or otherwise breach any rules of the meeting which have been explained by myself as chairperson. I may limit the number of questions asked by each member of the public in order to ensure all members of the public wishing to ask questions are given the opportunity within the allocated time. As per the policy, as chair, I will limit each participant to 2 questions and allow 2 minutes to ask your question, remembering it is question time, not time for commentary or debate. As chairperson, I have a responsibility to maintain a safe environment for elected members and council staff. We have tried to accommodate impassioned participation by members of the public in recent meetings as much as possible. However, there have been some concern over adherence to public question time rules. As a member of the public, you are responsible for ensuring your conduct adheres to the rules. I will not tolerate behaviour that contravenes the rules, and any person who behaves otherwise will be asked to leave the meeting. I appreciate your cooperation to ensure an orderly meeting. And public question time. Any members of the public have any questions? Ms. Crew.
Mayor Thomas, I note that you're a sponsor of the Tasmanian Racing Club and that your husband is on the committee. I note further that the Mayor of Clarence Council is the CEO. Does a sponsorship of the TRC come from coffers of Glenorchy City Council, or are you a sponsor in your personal capacity? If you are a sponsor in your personal capacity, I suggest that it would be prudent to refrain from using your mayoral title in personal matters. I respect your right to enjoy horse and greyhound racing, but a vast number of
This is time
residents...
for question time, Ms. Crew, not opinion or comment. So your question, I'm happy to answer, but I will not allow your opinion or comment.
Okay, but a vast majority, a vast number of residents in the municipality you represent consider these sports to be cruelty to animals.
So your question is, was the sponsorship my personal money or from the coffers of
in your
council?
personal capacity?
So I have previously sponsored races at the Tasmanian Racing Club from my own personal funds.
Yeah, well, I suggest you don't use your mayoral title.
Not time for comment or debate. This is question
That's
time.
my
You have one more
opinion.
question, and if you offer opinion or comment again, I will ask you to leave the meeting.
All right, that's fine. I think the community will have something to say about that. Second question, according to a Mercury interview with yourself, you've joined forces with 3 other mayors, namely Anna Reynolds of Hobart City Council, Brendan Blomley of Clarence and Paula Rees of Kingborough, to ask the Tasmanian government for a further 26 million in funding the new ferry terminals at Harrow Point, Kingston Beach and Regatta Point, with 6 million of the sum going towards completing the redevelopment of Bellreeve Terminal. That's 52 million in total. My question is, why are you involved in this venture when the Glenorchy region does not feature in the equation? It feels like a slap in the face to our beleaguered community and to the folk campaigning for the War Memorial Pool. Or perhaps it is a bid for the state election?
Thank you, Ms. Crew. Glenorchy City Council is a part of the Greater Hobart Strategic Partnership, which is an alliance formed between Glenorchy City Council, Hobart City Council, Clarence and Kingborough councils.
Sure.
And it was established out of the City Deal and their Greater Hobart Act, which establishes the Greater Hobart Strategic Partnership. And we work together to lobby state and federal governments for projects that will benefit Greater Hobart. The ferries, we successfully lobbied the federal government to receive $20 million in funding from the federal government through the last election to provide infrastructure for ferry terminals to expand the network of our Derwent River ferry service, including a terminal at Wilkinson's Point, and planning is underway for that. So absolutely, the Glenorchy community is part of the equation when it comes to ferries, and we are working with the state government and the other councils and the federal government on progressing plans to expand the ferry network to provide improved transport options for the people of Glenorchy.
Right, thank you for that.
Thank you, Ms. Crew.
Perhaps the reciprocity
No, this
would
is
be
not time
nice.
for comment.
Reciprocity about the pool would be nice.
Not time for comment. Any further public questions? Ms Bryant.
Denise Bryan, 14 England Avenue, Montrose. My question is, has the council applied for pool funding grants?
Thank you, Ms Bryan. Council has lobbied the federal and state governments and continues to lobby the federal and state governments for funding to redevelop the Glenorchy War Memorial Pool site. We have not yet applied for specific grant program funding because there is not grant program fundings available at this point in time open for applications that would provide for an amount of funding that we know is required to redevelop the pool facility. We will await the findings of the MI Global consultation before we have clearer direction on what exactly we will be applying for when it comes to redevelopment of that site and what the specific costs will be. Typically, grant programs require projects to be shovel-ready. We don't have a shovel-ready project to be applying for a funding for through a grants program at this point in time.
Yeah, okay then. It is a bit concerning that you haven't applied.
This is not time for commentary or debate. Do you have a second question, Ms Bryan?
Second question, the Lakers report did not recommend the closure of the pool and believed testing was an essential requirement before council and aldermen made decisions about the future of the pool. That's testing of the pool shell and the concrete. Why didn't the council authorise a chemical analysis of the concrete and pool shell to determine its true life expectancy, as this was strongly recommended in the Lakers report, page 46? Why didn't this occur?
Thank you, Ms Bryan. I'll take that one on notice.
Thank you.
Ms Rose.
My name's Leanne Rose. I live at Anderson Street, Glenorchy. My questions today relate to the Glenorchy Memorial Pool. In the funding of the pool and Tolosa Street Master Plan, where councils asked federal government for 39 million, including 26 million for the pool and 13 million for Tolosa Park, the council said, and I quote, "Both these projects would provide a massive boost to our community infrastructure. They support people in our community to be active and engaged. They provide spaces for residents and families to congregate and enjoy recreational opportunities. Overall, they add to the livability of our city for decades to come." So my question is to all the aldermen and the mayor and deputy mayor today. As council representatives, what has changed? Why have you now blatantly and without good reason changed your mind about the livability of our city and the importance of a pool for Glenorchy, its citizens and people further afield who need to use our pool, and why are you now dismissing and minimising ratepayers' opinions and concerns by continually speaking against the people on this subject during council general meetings about our beloved pool, when only approximately 8 months ago we were on the same page? My next question, do you want me to go through all the questions first?
So you have two questions. I'll answer your first question. Council continues to lobby state and federal governments for funding for both the Glenorchy War Memorial Pool redevelopment and for Tolosa Park. We've just released a priority projects investment document, which is available on our website, which includes, like last year, includes a request for funding for both of those projects.
And what about the livability of Glenorchy as our city? How do you feel about that now?
We stand by that statement, Ms Rose.
You still stand by that statement?
That's right, yep.
All right, my next question. In the Consultant Commission brief regarding contract 953 concerning our pool, why do council's expectations, actions emphasised throughout this document state alternative options over and over for the pool site? even going as far as stating not just aquatic users, the broader community under the following heading, and I quote, enhance recreational opportunities, identification and analysis of multiple options to optimise recreational outcomes, not just aquatic users in brackets, the broader community, etc. And under this heading, comprehensive costs and benefit analysis and evaluation of the whole of life costs and benefits of different alternatives to ensure that the financial implications of each are clearly understood. And in the investigation of the pool redevelopment and other options written by Tony McMullen on the 23rd of August, the Council, to date, Council's consultants engaged to assess the condition of the current pool facility and have identified a range of options. And under those headings, we've got permanent closure, remediation of current issue involving multi-million-dollar repairs resulting in pool closure, while repairs are undertaken to gain a limited additional asset life, and redevelopment, arrangements for community use of alternative swimming pool facilities at the Hobart Aquatic Centre or at the Clarence. The limited access life statement above, what is the evidence behind that statement, please? In my deputation, with information supplied by Dr. Shane Gould, the value of a swimming pool to the community is more than just financial. Did all the aldermen in this room today listen to my deputation, and did they get access to the statement from Shane Gould dated the 22nd of September 23 called The Purpose of a Swimming Pool? Taking into consideration all the things I've just said, if you're a member of the Save the Glenorchy Pool community, what would you think? How would you feel about these?
I just ask you to wrap it up. Please put your questions succinctly so that I can do my best to answer.
How would you feel about these strategically biased documents that direct MI Global partners to lean strongly towards discussions of alternative options? Sorry, what was that?
Sorry, I think it came through there.
So, how would you feel about these strategically biased documents that direct MI Global partners to lean strongly towards discussions of alternative options, not pool or aquatic centre, for the land in the centre of Glenorchy? If you disagree with these observations, why are alternative options listed so widely in these documents?
Thank you, Ms Rose. I'll answer your question. So Council is committed to exploring all options for the future of the site and wants to ensure in any decision making the financial viability and sustainability of a replacement asset on the site. The project brief clearly articulates that the work to be undertaken is to include the analysis of the concept design and the costing for a redeveloped pool on the site. So that certainly is within the scope of the project. It is not being excluded. That will be explored as part of the project and will be a really significant part of the consultation with the community.
So you don't believe the documents are biased? I'm just trying to clarify my question. You don't believe the documents are biased?
Thank you, two questions. Thank you. And this is not time for debate. So I've answered your question and please return to your seat.
That was part of my question.
I've answered your question. Please return to your seat.
You don't believe the documents are biased and towards
No, Ms
alternative
Rose.
options?
No, I don't believe they are biased.
Thank you.
Sir, would you like to come forward? We have 2 minutes remaining in public question time. I will extend if necessary, but please do keep your questions succinct. Thank you.
Andrew Bevan, Victor Place, Glenorchy. Earlier in January, Alderman Dunsby informed us via social media that a verbal briefing to the elected members, the Lacus report, was far more extensive and closing the pool immediately was the only option. Seeing that the Lacus report provided many options, and that was, other than that, are you able to provide us with the minutes of that meeting so we can see what further information was provided in that meeting outside of the Lacus report?
Council doesn't keep minutes from workshops, so there are no minutes available to be provided. What I will say though is the PowerPoint presentation that was provided to elected members in preparation for that workshop and that formed the basis for the discussion at that workshop is published on Council's website, is publicly
Yes,
available.
cool. All right, thank you. I did have a lot of concern here. And one other question. The New Norfolk pool, which was built in 1963, they've recently been successful in gaining grant funds for $300,000 for work on the pool there for various things. Our pool was standing. That grant was made under the Open Spaces program. Has the council made any applications under the Open Spaces program for any funding for any public reserves?
Yes,
Yeah.
if it's the same program I'm thinking of, through the Local Government Association of Tasmania's Open Spaces program, Council was successful in receiving $250,000 funding, Director, is that correct? $250,000 funding for a renewal of the skate park in Claremont.
Cool. And can I have one more question? No?
No, because then I have to let everyone else. But you are absolutely, please leave it with staff and we will answer it and include the answer in the minutes.
Thank you.
Yeah, if you leave it with Emma at the back there. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Bevan. I will extend public question time for another 10 minutes.
Thank you very much. Hello, I'm Deanne Gilly. I also go by the name of Deanne Shaw. And let's talk about social media. Late one night, some months ago on television, I watched a program that talked about how Tasmania will be the key electorate and we might see some big issues impacting our communities in the next coming elections and how important it's going to be for our government to retain its seats. And we might see social media platforms popping up in our news feeds. Currently, you are running a paid Facebook ad giving away a $100 voucher, asking people to register their Facebook accounts. My first question is, what do you plan to do with this Facebook list? Will you be selling it, or is it going to be used for political advertising, or is it just going to snoop around to see who our friends are and what we're up to?
Thank you, Ms. Gilly. I'm not aware of us collecting people's Facebook accounts through this, but I will take it on notice.
Yeah, have a
to
little
get-
look at that,
yeah,
sort of like you're wanting Facebook accounts. So Facebook groups can be controlled, and the admins can control who's accepted into those groups and who can see those posts. Profiles can be made up and group numbers can be made up of people all over Australia and the world. Facebook, in my opinion, is not a good tool for community engagement, especially when it can be controlled whoever set up groups in the first place. Accounts can be hacked and profiles can be taken over. It should not be used to collect data or feedback, and it could be used corruptly as a form of community consultation. It seems to me that you have rejected the community wanting a public meeting regarding the Glenorchy War Memorial Pool, and now you're handballing it straight to consultancy. I'm an active member with 2 Facebook groups with Save the Pool, along with a few other feeds. So my second question is, do you think MI Global should use a Facebook group to review investigating the other options in the tender process? Doesn't even look like we're getting an option for a pool. You all sat here and you told us we couldn't afford to run a pool. Most of you have not even read the Lackas report. You've all just nodded your head.
Sorry,
and gone
I
away.
have to stop you there, Ms.
So will you be
You're
using
being
MI
inflammatory.
Global? Will you be using MI Global with your Facebook group to suit her?
As I stated earlier today in my update, Council expects to receive the Communication Engagement Plan from MI Global today. Council, we will see in that engagement plan how MI Global plan to consult with the community.
Good.
And we will be providing details of that to the community once we have that information.
Great, because not everybody has
No,
Facebook.
this is not time for debate.
No, I'm just saying, because
Thank you.
not everybody has Facebook, and it's not the tool to use.
Thank you, Ms. Gilly. If there, one more, yep, come forward.
Hi, my name is Lisa Ryan. I live in Edinburgh, Crescent Goodwood. I've got 2 questions. The first one is, as a result of the government's commitment to implement the full 191 recommendations of the Child Abuse Commission of Inquiry, how does the City of Glenorchy, the Glenorchy City Council, monitor the safety of children and youth at the premises they lease to sporting clubs?
Thank you, Ms Rhyme. I'll take that one on notice to ensure we provide an accurate and detailed response.
Thank you. The second one is, working with vulnerable children, registrations regularly checked and recorded and dealt with by the council.
Can you just say that again? Are working with vulnerable people?
Working with vulnerable children, registrations regularly checked and recorded, and how are reportable incidents, recorded and dealt with by the council.
Just for clarity, when you say working with vulnerable people, registrations are checked and recorded and incidents
I'll read
monitored.
it again.
Oh no, I heard the question, but just for clarity, are you talking about who's working with vulnerable people checks? Are you talking about council employees, elected members?
First time I omitted the words reportable incidents, working with vulnerable children, registrations regularly checked and recorded, and how are reportable incidents recorded and dealt with by the council. So, people who need to have working with vulnerable people check for their job, is that something that's actually checked? Is that something that's actually recorded that people in these places have done?
Yes.
How often is that checked?
Yep, so I'll take that one on notice as well, just to make sure again that we provide an accurate answer, and if officers need any further information, just to clarify who you're actually referring to, they'll be in touch.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Ryan. Okay, we will close public question time and move on to item 7, which is petitions or deputations. General Manager.
Mayor, we have received a petition today from Denise Bryan in relation to, and I'll read out the petition. Petition to Glenorchy City Council. We, the undersigned, hereby request that Council 1, urgently repair and reopen the Glenorchy War Memorial Pool. 2, hold a public meeting to address the pool-related concerns of the community.
Thank you, General Manager.
And the process from here basically is that Council, now that it's been tabled, the Council now within 42 days needs to bring a report back in relation to the topic of the petition.
Thank you, General Manager. Received and noted the petition. Item 8, activities of the Mayor. We have a recommendation that Council receives a report about the activities of Mayor Thomas during the period 11th of December to 21st of January. Do I have someone to move? Move to Deputy Mayor. Someone to second? Alderman Alderton. Deputy Mayor, any discussion?
No, I don't, yeah, but someone around the table.
Thank you. Any discussion? Happy for me to put the motion to the vote? Please raise your hand if you are for. That's carried unanimously. Item 9, business unit reviews, quarterly update. We have a recommendation that Council receive and note the quarterly report on Project Hudson, Moona Arts Centre business plan, childcare connections and progress on the Community Development Action Plan. Do I have someone to move this as a motion? Moved Councillor Kendall, seconded Alderman King. Councillor Kendall.
Yeah, so this is our quarterly report. It's pretty fantastic in my opinion this time. So it outlines some of the key areas, including Project Hudson, which is a massive upgrade of all of the tech in council. A pretty big undertaking. The Moona Arts Centre, the childcare centres, and the community development action plan. So yeah, I'll open it up for debate.
Thank you, Councillor Kendall. Any further discussion? Alderman Yaxley.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of questions regarding the Community Development Action Plan around the unsuccessful application for the Tasmanian Community Fund. Was there any reasons or feedback provided as to why we were unsuccessful?
My understanding was that the information that came back said that they would not be offering feedback on specific applications, but they have agreed to meet with us to discuss further opportunities. Is that right, General Manager?
That's correct in the report. I believe it was a very competitive round.
So our manager community will be meeting with the Tasmanian Community Fund to discuss further opportunities. I know Director Riali and I presented to the Tasmanian Community Fund probably about this time last year maybe, and talked about the need for projects to address disadvantage and particularly early intervention for youth, and certainly at that meeting it was very well received, the issues that we raised and the things that we had identified, ideas we had identified to address it. So certainly there was interest. Our initial EOI was unsuccessful, but I don't think the door's closed. So I think Manager Community's just come in. I don't know if you've got anything more to add on the, we're just talking about the application to the Tasmanian Community Fund being unsuccessful, but the door's still open to discussions with them.
We had a brief meeting with them the other day. We're progressing that forward. We're going to put in an application in,
Oh, good.
and they're helping us with that.
Okay, so it might still be a possibility.
Hopefully.
Great. Thank you. Any other questions
That
on
just
your?
answers my second question, so thank you. That's good. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor.
Mayor, I know I've asked this question at previous councils and I know I should know the answer, but most boards that I'm on report revenue as positive and expenditure as a negative. So due to the fact we don't have that with our reporting mechanism, can we have a net position supplied at the bottom? So in other words, is it in the case of the MAC, annual budget $661 million of expenditure, less the $82,000 of income, making it a much, slightly more palatable loss? Or is it, yes, if you could explain that system.
General Manager, do you comment on that?
So is it, in other words, is it 661,000 minus 82,000 equals a net position of Y? I just wish it was done in the normal process.
Yep, so the annual budget revenue is $82,000 in, $661,000
Out.
Yep,
Which would make us 580 something, I think, in a
in a loss.
hole.
Yep. Is that right, General Manager?
We're around about 579.
Yeah, so in other words, if we have to go with this system, could we please have a net position?
At the bottom, another line in the.
Otherwise, let's do it as the way everyone else does it.
Yep, see what you're saying, yep, noted. Any further discussion? Councillor Kendall,
Thanks.
do you have a question?
Yeah.
Question, yep.
So this was just around Project Hudson, which is a huge deal for us and very expensive and a very big undertaking. So props to all the work that's been happening behind the scenes. On council, changing systems is hard and a tough thing to fit into your already busy schedule. So I'm focusing on phase 2 of Project Hudson. So that's August 2024. Especially with payments and infringements, building applications and the changeover of all of those services. When tech interfaces like that shift from the user's perspective, I think it opens people up for vulnerabilities and people could fall for scams as they're becoming comfortable with a new interface. So how's council helping our community, especially those less tech savvy people, to stay safe from things like phishing during these changes?
Comment on that
Yeah,
one?
we'll take that on notice.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. We'll come back to you on that one, Councillor Kendall. Any other discussion? I'd like to thank officers for the report. These are key areas that were reviewed at the direction of council in our strategic or targeted review of particular areas of council, and receiving these reports is really useful for us to see progress towards changing those areas. I particularly wanted to note the positive results for our childcare services, that the reviews have been done of the services, the governance and compliance reviews of those services by the Department for Education, Children and Young People, and Benjafield received a meeting rating, so it's meeting all the expectations in terms of governance and compliance, and Berrydale received an exceeding rating, exceeding the national quality standards, which requires a service to go beyond what is expected at the meeting level for that standard. So this is pretty good news for us, and I want to congratulate the General Manager and the staff in our childcare services for achieving that rating. I think it really is a good news story for us at council. I note that we are still struggling for staff, and that is a national struggle in terms of the childcare services. Hopefully, getting ratings like this will make it even more of an attractive place to work.
May I have a question?
Yes.
The Mental Health Week and the 44 council employees attended the 2-day mental health first aid course, delivered at no cost. Who delivered it, and how did we benefit in the 8,000? I mean, I know how we benefit, it's great, I recommend it, but did we get it through a grant, or how was that paid?
My understanding is that council received a grant last financial year or the one before to upskill council employees and some members of the community to deliver the training. So I think 12 people, council staff and people from different community groups in the community were accredited as instructors. So council can therefore deliver the training in-house and not have to pay a facilitator. Okay. Is that right, General Manager?
I'd have to defer to the manager on that one.
I'm happy to take that on notice if that's possible, considering it's only been a month that I've been here.
Sure.
You're pretty right.
Yeah, you remember we got that grant to train up
A
staff.
number of staff are upskilled, or an external people are upskilled, were able to take the training.
Yeah.
At minimal to no cost in essence.
Yeah, that's right. Yep. Yes, I'm fairly certain that.
It was done over the
Benefits.
Salvation Army thing there.
Any further discussion? Okay, we will go back to the mover. Councillor Kendall, closed debate. Anything further?
Thank you. Yeah, just to echo your comments about the childcare wins, congratulations to everyone in those centres. And also to the MAC, this is the first time that the Moona Arts Centre's reported back since December on their new plan, and I think they've done a great job in terms of identifying new opportunities, making partnerships, leasing arrangements, commercial food, and yeah, I think they've done really well. So that's all I have.
Great, thank you. I'll put the motion to the vote. Please raise your hand if you're for. Carried unanimously. Moving on to item 10, Access and Inclusion Special Committee. We have a recommendation that council establish the Access and Inclusion Special Committee, adopt the terms of reference for the Access and Inclusion Special Committee, and appoint elected members to the Access and Inclusion Special Committee. My understanding is we haven't received any nominations on notice in time for the meeting, so we will need to seek nominations from the floor. But General Manager, proceed.
Was acknowledged in time.
Same here.
I'm surprised about that.
Oh,
Andy Watson.
hang on.
Yeah, Andy Watson actually acknowledged my email, so.
Mine was acknowledged.
Oh, my apologies. Normally when we have them, they're included in the agenda, if they're received.
But the closing date was after the agenda came
Oh,
out.
I see. Right. Sorry. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. My apologies. So the motion up on the screen is that
So,
moved Alderman King, that we appoint Alderman Jan Dunsby and Alderman Shane Alderson to the Access and Inclusion Special Committee. Moved Alderman King, someone to second. Alderman Yaxley. Thank you. Alderman King.
Well, considering there are two positions and two people have put their hands up, I think my math says that that's pretty okay.
Happy with that?
I am.
Thank you, Alderman King. Any further discussion? Alderman Dunsby.
I'd just like to make a comment about the process. Now, we had to put in a nomination and put reasons why we wanted to be on that committee, and yet that information wasn't shared with colleagues around the table to help them make an informed decision if we were going to election. So we possibly need to consider in the future the timelines of when that information is requested, so that A, it could be included with the papers or it is circulated separate to that. I mean, in this instance, there were only two nominations, but other than that, we'd be having a ballot, but not having any information to make an informed decision. Just a comment about that.
Thank you, Alderman Dunsby.
Yeah, and if I could just make a further comment
Yeah.
about, I'm really, really pleased to see this community group getting up and running. It is so valued, and the work that they do assists not only council but the greater community as well. I'm very excited to see it back up and running.
Thank you, Alderman Dunsby. Deputy Mayor.
Mayor, I don't know if this needs to be an addition to the resolution, but that this not be just a special committee, but a standing committee that goes from council to council, because it is such an important committee, and most councils have one. So I'm surprised that we've taken I think it was 400 and something days to.
126 today.
Thank you. Days to establish this committee formally, and I would just like to see one that rolls on as a bit like the GPA.
Yep, thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'm just going back to the actual terms of reference there, because so special committee, General Manager, can you just remind me if it's established as a special committee, how that sits under the Act?
It's a special committee under section 24 of the Act because it's a committee that involves participation by both elected members and members of the community.
Secondary question, can it still be one that is established from the day of election? You know, that it's a definite committee, not one we create halfway into the term.
So the term of appointment will be invited for the term of the council, but you're saying, can it
From the beginning of the term of the council.
Yeah.
Can I just make the point, Mayor, in response to the comment that's been made, that at no time has council resolved to establish a committee in the 426 days since it was elected. So this is the first recommendation to council. Council has not brought forward any notices of motion in relation to establishing a new committee. This is the first such committee that's been brought forward.
So there wasn't one in the last term of council?
Sorry, we're talking about this term of council. I think
but
the numbers that have been mentioned are 419 and 426 days.
Well, let's not take offence at that. I think the point is that this needs to be one of the more important committees of the council, and it should be commenced or put up to us as aldermen rather than the other way around, that it starts at the beginning of each year, because it was mentioned when we all came together.
So, Deputy Mayor, just to be clear, would that need to be reflected in the terms of reference then that, General Manager, how do you see that playing out if it's to be reconvened at the commencement of a term of council? Would that need to be reflected in the terms of reference?
Mayor can take that on notice, but we understand the intent. The intent is that there's continuity of that particular committee. There would need, I think what is being said is that this is one of those committees for which we should be seeking nominations at the start of the council term. I think the reason for the hiatus from the last council term was that the review of committees was imminent. And there have been since 2 council workshops in July and September dealing with committees, but no formal council decision or direction in relation to the establishment of new committees.
Thank you. So, Deputy Mayor, are you satisfied that?
I think the General Manager has got the drift. Thank you.
I've got a
Thank you,
question.
Deputy Mayor. Do you have a question?
Yeah, I've just got a question that I've raised this committee, start this committee. It's really good that it's going to start, and other committees to you, the General Manager, and to other staff in relation to now. Reality is that surely, the cracker doesn't have to sort of, who lights the cracker? In relation to starting these things. I'm used to a council where these are there from the day that you get elected, that first meeting, everybody puts their hands up for their skill base and whatever for positions. I found it very strange this time that they weren't available. So that's why I said, and this one is 426 days till we understand. But in saying that, I have mentioned it, other people mentioned it, I've mentioned it to you, you talk to the General Manager. What I've got to do, what is something got to do? I've got to, it shouldn't have to be me to raise this as an alderman. Surely it must surely come from yourself, the General Manager, that there's a need for it. So I take what you're saying, General Manager, but what are you saying, General Manager, where it should be coming from then? I'm really lost by it.
Through you, Mayor. So under the Local Government Act, council officers don't direct the resources of council.
Right.
The resources of council can only be directed by the collective decisions of the council. and no collective decision of the council has been made to establish any committees. I take the point that you have raised on several occasions that committees ought to occur, but we're talking about the collective decision of the council that needs to direct the resources, not an individual alderman's opinion.
So you don't think that was an appropriate thing for a general manager to have discussion with the mayor, or the mayor, the general manager, to raise that as not as a significant issue?
So if I might add to what you said, General Manager, or do you want to answer?
Through you, I'm happy to answer myself. What I'm saying is that the collective resources of the council are directed by the collective council, not by the officers. So there has been no such decision to direct those committees be established. And as you say, there's been 426 days opportunity for individual aldermen to raise.
So that's my fault.
Notices of through you, Mayor, I'm not getting into the blame game. I'm just trying to make. I'm trying to defend the officer's position.
Yep. So as further to what the General Manager has said, we took it upon us as a council, our priority was to develop our strategic plan, and through those strategic plan discussions, we said we'd like our committees structure and the subjects of our committees to be informed by the development of our strategic plan. That occurred. Then we did, as the General Manager said, decide that we wanted to review the committees that we had and the format and structure of them, because in the last council term, we thought that they could have been formed and structured in a way that provided more oversight in terms of reporting back to council and more effective as a community engagement tool. We had quite a significant review of our community engagement framework occur last year, and part of the review of the community engagement framework was reviewing the role of reference groups and committees. That was a part of that review, so that was something that we were waiting for the outcome of before we decided how we went forward with committees, noting their significant resource that committees do take up administratively. We needed to make a decision as a council, and it is our decision, as the General Manager has said, as to whether we want council officer resources to be tied up by committees and be clear about what benefits they bring to council and to the community. We had a workshop where the General Manager presented a particular structure for committees, and we as a council at that workshop, whilst it's not a decision-making forum, a workshop, we all know that, thought that the structure that was proposed would cause to bear quite a significant administrative burden, and at that workshop we talked about the committees that we thought were most topical and of importance, and that's what we're seeing come to us today. The first of those in the Access and Inclusion Committee come to us today. So I guess that's, whilst it sounds like a long-winded response, there have been a number of factors that we've taken into consideration, noting what the Deputy Mayor has said about this one in particular being one that is quite standard for councils to have, and I think the General Manager's clearly taken that on board, that has been noted for future.
Mayor? Yes, so is it correct that we have already formed the Christmas Carol Committee and the Grant Committee?
Yes, 2 grants committees.
So regardless of who's to blame, they were put up to the council and we resourced those. And I do remember discussion about the access inclusion being another very special committee. So unfortunately, it's been a long time coming. It's here. Let's approve it and make sure that it is named up very early in the next term.
Well, Mayor, can I just ask a question?
Question?
Who's the mystery person or persons who instigate the other 4 ones that we need to get up and running? Who does that then? The other 4 committees?
The other committees that we've discussed as priority areas.
Who does that then?
Well, as we've talked about, the General Manager, he's who's accountable to us as elected members. So it'll be up to the General Manager to be determining who within his resources of staff is responsible for other committees that have been identified. But again, there has been no notice of motion to establish any other committees at this particular point in time. We have discussed at a workshop the topics of interest when it comes to committees aligned with our strategic plan.
So, Mayor, I just need to understand that myself here today. For those other four to start, an alderman needs to put a notice of motion or something like that, discuss with council, and then the council vote's taken, and if it's a yes, then the council general management then takes on board. Is that correct?
Yes, is that your understanding, General Manager?
Through you, Mayor. So, Alderman Slater, I know you were working on a notice of motion in December.
This was so hard work, General Manager, I'll put that through the shredder. Too hard work, because I'm here to do a job, to be supported by management, and that was just too hard work. But the reality is we've got other committees that are already up and running, which we as aldermen didn't ask for, and they're up and running, but these other ones aren't. There's some funny line ball here, that some are in and some are out. I just want to know how we get the other ones going, so elected members can use their skills around the table to help the general people in the community here with issues around the city, rather than perhaps appearing to be doing nothing, that's all.
I'm happy to discuss further with you a notice of motion on that, Alderman Slade, to make it happen. Alderman Alderton.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. I think the important thing here as well is maybe we should seek some community feedback on what committees they would like to see the council instigate and establish as well.
Thank you, Alderman Alderton, and absolutely, we did do that through the community engagement review. Councillor Kendall.
Thank you, Mayor. On a slightly different tact, absolutely happy that this has come up and happy to approve Alderman Dunsby and Alderman Alderton in the roles. Just a request for a change of, to the terms of reference. So on the roles and functions, the first dot point is so we've got public spaces, roads, footpaths identified, and I'd really like the inclusion of the word buildings in there. So
that's in the version that I've got.
So roles and functions.
To provide advice to Glenorchy City Council on matters relating to access and inclusion under terms of reference 1.2. Public spaces, council-owned assets such as roads, footpaths and buildings.
All right. I was looking at the roles.
You might be looking at the other. Where's the roles and functions, sorry?
It's in the committee information. But if buildings are specified, that's fine. I just think it's important to include, so if it's there, that's fine. But I was looking at on page 36 of the agenda.
Oh, I see, yes. So it has been updated since it was cut and pasted. So if you actually go to the attachments, the actual attachments under 1.2, which is, the actual terms of reference, it definitely has buildings in the terms of reference.
Really?
Yeah, thank you. Good one. Easy. Thank you. Any further discussion? And I will go back to the mover, Alderman King, to close debate.
We've done it, haven't we, Nick?
If you say so.
I think so. I say so.
I'll put the motion to the vote. Please raise your hand if you're for. Carried unanimously. Moving on to item 11, rescinded council policy. I have a recommendation that council rescind the social media policy. Alderman Yaxley.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to make and propose a alternative motion if possible. I've sent that through to elected members this afternoon.
Thank you. You have an alternative motion proposed up on the screen. That one, council will review and recommend to improve the social media policy to current best practices on how council communicates via social media. 2, review and recommend any changes to improve the elected member code of conduct that may clarify conduct on social media by elected members. And 3, review the General Manager's social and other media directive and recommend a new policy that manages employees' social media conduct. That is the proposed alternative motion. Do I have anyone to second?
I'm happy to second that.
Alderman Alderton, thank you. Alderman Yaxley.
Thank you, Mayor, through you. So I believe that we need to not rescind the social media policy that we currently have. And like I outlined in the motion, for mine, it does need updating and improving. The social media policy deals with how council will work and communicate using social media and the boundaries and the expectations around that. It's a policy on how council uses social media, and it is still required. And from my reading, the elected code of conduct and the general manager's social and other media internal directive refers to the actions and the work of council on, their use of social media, not the work of the council in social media. So my just to outline why I feel like it shouldn't be rescinded is that the current policy says that this policy sets out objectives and guidelines that govern council's use of social media to communicate externally, and I feel that the other two proposed policies that would overtake and help govern aren't sufficient enough. So I believe that having a firm social media policy of how we operate and then recommending on the usages around that.
Thank you, Alderman Yaxley. Alderman King.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you, thank you very much, Alderman Yaxley, for bringing this to us today. And you know how much I love social media, so my only concern is some measurements on this. So if we're going to review and recommend, we need some feedback, timeframes around feedback. If we're going to review and recommend, this in itself is great, but we recommend and have reported back to us by X, Y, Z what the recommendations are. Otherwise, it's too open. The only thing is it's a little open-ended in that sense.
So what would you suggest?
Review and recommend to improve the social media policy and have staff report back to us within X months. Whatever's a reasonable thing, I know it would be unreasonable, but what's a reasonable thing? I don't know. We'd have to ask the staff that question.
General Manager? March?
Would you be accepting?
Yeah, that's fine.
Will there be time for a workshop on that prior to the March meeting, General Manager, do you think? So I think this is something that we really need to thresh out a bit.
Yeah.
In a workshop setting, there's a number of elements to what you're proposing here. And I think we need to be clear on the architecture around it, because it's talking about a social media policy, it's talking about our code of conduct, and also a new policy for employee social media. So that I don't know if that's two different policies, and then also the general manager's directive, which is internal operational document. So I think we need to be clear in our discussion at a workshop about what's actually necessary here without.
I don't want to
overdoing
make it complicated.
Yeah.
And we want to make it usable and as flexible as it possibly can for a long time as well. So
by March or by April, a time frame to get the reviews and recommendations back.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's open-ended.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah, I'm happy.
It's unfair to staff and it's unfair to us
Okay.
if there's no time frame.
So if we could maybe add a fourth point, bring back to a council meeting, report back, the council receive a report
On the recommendations.
on the recommendations
By
by the April council meeting. You happy with that, Alderman Yaxley and Alderman Alderton? Happy with that?
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you, Alderman King. Alderman Slade.
Mayor, thank Alderman Yaxley for bringing it up. I'm pleased it's going to a workshop. I just got confused with it because there's a lot of subjective things in that needs some expertise put to it. I use social media, but I don't know what best practice is. In relation to the elected members' code of conduct may clarify conduct on social media. That needs to be mirrored up to what's also in the code of conduct. And I think the last one, to me, it's more like a recommend and review social media in the whole organisation, including those things, which is social media for us, social media for the general manager, and have a report back in April. That's,
Yeah.
am I seeing it right like that? Because
Yeah.
there's a lot of things there that I'm just, current best practice, I just don't want somebody to pull something out off the computer or Google it. I just want it to be concurrent, that I can go to it, and it's already reckoning for me to what it should be.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, my hope is that because I guess we've got the 3 policies that we presented in the report, so I was just trying to use those to try and form a new, however it looks. Yeah.
Yes, I think the intent is
Okay.
clear, General Manager, is that okay? Alderman Dunsby.
I intended to ask a question about, as you say, a directive as opposed as a policy, and we don't have any say over directives as selected members. So I was interested in, I was going to ask the question here, but I'd like to direct that question now back to the workshop.
Sure. Thank you, Alderman Dunsby. Alderman Alderton.
Yes, I supported this motion put forward by Alderman Yasser because I feel it's vitally important that we align our social media policy with the changes that are going to occur with our code of conduct policy.
Thank you, Alderman Alderton. Any further discussion?
Just a question, Mayor, that we've got by the April meeting, but if it's ready, we could have it on that's right, so it's by, so that's given us a bit of room to move, that's all.
That's right, yeah.
Yep.
But particularly knowing that we have a fairly hectic workshop schedule
Yep.
coming up and Easter in March as well. I too support the proposed motion. I think it is important that whilst elected member conduct is somewhat covered in our code of conduct, it is not, which we all sign up to, it is not really explicit around social media use. It is something that that I feel like it would be useful for us to have guidance on through a policy, and again be clear on council social media versus our own individual social media use, and how we are using it to be an effective communication tool as an organisation, but also individually. It has pros, but also a lot of cons, and it's important that we have some support and guidance, I think, to best get the best use from social media, and some guidance through a policy is helpful. So I'm happy to support. Thank you, Alderman Yaxley. If there's no further comment, I'll go back to you to close debate. Anything to close debate?
Nothing further, thank you.
No. I'll put the motion to the vote. Please raise your hand if you're for. Carried unanimously. Item 12, Financial Performance Report to 31st of December 2023. We have a recommendation that Council receive and note the Financial Performance Report for year to date ending 31st of December. Someone to move? Alderman Dunsby. Someone to second? Alderman Cockshut. Alderman Dunsby.
Thank you. I believe the report's fairly self-explanatory. The movements that are in the document there are certainly well explained for me. I didn't have any personal questions, so happy to open up to questions around the table.
Thank you, Alderman Dunsby. Any discussion? Alderman Yaxley.
Just quickly, just note obviously that our revenue was up and expenditures down. I just wanted to take some time to congratulate, I know we do this a lot, but we've set a certain strategic plan in place with our annual plan goals, and I just feel it's something that directors, managers, all the team members they're producing this result. It's not us around the table, and it's well done on picking up what we're doing and then running with it. And change is difficult, and adjusting things sometimes for better efficiencies can be hard to do. So I just wanted to give a shout out to all the team in council for doing a great job on a great year so far.
Thank you. Thanks, Alderman Yaxley. Any further discussion? Deputy Mayor?
Only just that, in light of what Alderman Yaxley said, this is just a spot in time, and the timing of payments could make a very big difference. And sometimes money not spent is a worry, because it gets more expensive when you get round to having to spend it. And it might be, I do like very much though our officers' attitude of, if we can't do this right now due to lack of people or resources in some way, we will try and see what else we can do so that we keep an active workload. But we are looking fairly early into the year, and I suspect it will look quite different by the end of the year on how much we've spent. And spending is a good thing.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Any further discussion? Anything to close debate, Alderman Dunsby? Are you happy to move on?
No, just perhaps to endorse the comment. come into mind after the Deputy Mayor's spoken that, we've got plans for, another 10 parks to be delivered before the end of this year. So I think we'll see plenty of spending happening.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you. I'll put the motion to the vote. Please raise your hand if you're for. Carried unanimously. Item 13, naming of a new subdivision road in Claremont. A recommendation that council assign the name Boston Court to the subdivision road shown on the municipal map included in this report under section 11 of the Place Names Act 2020 and submit the proposed name to Place Names Tasmania for confirmation and registration. Moved Alderman King, seconded Alderman Dunsby. Alderman King.
It's almost amusing, it takes 9 of us in the planning authority to do this tonight to name a street, but nevertheless, I'll put my amusement aside, and whether we like the name or not, or it's Americanism, it's not inappropriate. I don't see it's offensive as such, and therein I can't see why we wouldn't approve it.
Thank you, Alderman King. Any further discussion? Alderman Alderton.
Yes, a question. Can I ask where the name derives from? Did the applicant give us any explanation as to where the name derived from?
I think in the report it said the style of the houses is American style houses.
American style houses, and we're going to call it Washington Street, so it's a subdivision that's going to look Americanised.
Yeah, to fit with the theme of traditional American style houses, the applicants have chosen Boston Court to link a name synonymous with leafy streets and traditional architecture.
1,000-metre square blocks.
Thank you.
So the typical Americanised house.
Any further discussion? Look at this, we're all sitting as one whole GPA.
Well, we haven't got Harry, but nevertheless, I'm sure it will support.
Anything else to close debate, Alderman King?
Does no one else want to speak to it?
No, I just did.
I'm shocked. All right, no, nothing.
Okay, I'll put the motion to the vote. Please raise your hand if you're for. Carried unanimously. Item 14, Procurement and Contracts Exemptions Report. Recommendation that Council receive and note the Procurement Contracts Report relating to an exemption approved by the Director Community and Corporate Services for a 5-year extension licence of DocuSign e-signature software, totalling an estimated $130,000 excluding GST. Moved Alderman Cockshut, seconded Alderman Yaxley. Alderman Cockshut.
Thank you, Mayor. Pretty straightforward one, this. So I'll just pass over to other elected members if they want to have any commentary.
Thank you, Alderman Cockshut. Any further discussion? Alderman
Just
Yaxley.
one, I was, when I looked at the apologies. Obviously there's a number of signing software has developed along. I've used it a number of times, but I did research it. Is this tech ready for what we're doing? It only works with DocuSign.
Yep, great. Any further discussion? Anything to close debate? Alderman Cockshut.
All good, thank you.
I'll put the motion to the vote. Please raise your hand if you're for. Carried unanimously. Moving on to item 15, notices of motions, questions without notice. Are there any questions without notice? Alderman Alderton.
Yes, I have a question without notice, Mayor. In regards to our council meetings, I've noticed that we no longer, or unless it's happened in the last hour or so, publish on our platforms, the website, social media, the content of the agenda or the attachments, or a link to locate those attachments.
Yes.
For community members to obviously have the opportunity to peruse through the agenda, read the attachments prior to the council meeting. I was just wondering why that is not occurring. It used to occur. Why is that no longer occurring?
Thank you, Alderman Alderton. It's a good question you raise, and I think it would probably be because our communications officer resigned and we haven't had someone internally managing our Facebook page. So that's right, General Manager, but it certainly is something that I'm looking at our Manager Executive and Stakeholder Engagement who's noted it down for publication in future.
Thank you.
Alderman King.
Thank you, Mayor, through you, and to Director Rial, if I could just, the recent fire at Gibbon Street Park, in the new toilets, the cost of that, are we covered by insurance, and is there any way of cost recovery? It really concerns me that we're getting vandalism in the city, and is there a way of us recovering cost from those that do the damage? And I know often it's, I say often, maybe that's too general, but young people are doing damage, but very young people, from what I remember of over at Wilkinson's Point. But is there any way of recovering cost? Or, I mean, is insurance cover that, and how much was it?
Thank you, Alderman King. Director Rial.
Mayor, the cost of that damage was a fire that started in a sanitary bin. The cost of repairs is just under $14,000. We are lodging an insurance claim and they will pay, but we do have a $10,000 excess on items like that. Luckily, we have got CCTV cameras mounted in that area, and we were able to identify the people that started that fire, and they were very young children, between the ages of 8 and 10 years old, that started messing around, burning paper towels, and then lit up the bin. The CCTV was provided to the police. The police knew who they were and where they lived, and did actually pay a visit on the basis that we'll try and get some charges or recover costs. We haven't heard back the results of that as yet. However, they did indicate it's highly unlikely if we would be able to recover any costs.
And roughly how long are they out of commission?
The repairs, we've got quotes and awarded the job, and hopefully it'll be repaired by the end of next week.
Thank you.
Just for information, Mayor, the old toilets at Gibbons Reserve have been cleaned and reopened so that people can actually use them. They're a little bit further away than the new toilets, but they're functional at this stage until the other ones are repaired.
Okay.
Thank you. On top of things as
Thank
always,
you.
appreciate that.
Thank you. Thank you, Alderman King. Any further questions without notice? Alderman Yaxley.
Mayor, just a quick one, just regarding the, wondering if council had received any update regarding the letter that was sent to Minister Ferguson about the road safety issue at Foreshore Road?
No, we have not received a response as yet. We'll let you know when we do. Any further questions without notice? No? Okay, we have a motion. A notice of motion from Councillor Kendall, a proposal that council call for immediate and permanent ceasefire in Gaza. Councillor Kendall, would you like to move your motion? Moved, Councillor Kendall. Do I have anyone to second Councillor Kendall's motion? Seconded, Deputy Mayor, Councillor Kendall.
Thank you, Mayor. So this motion is for Glenorchy City Council to take a public and principled position on the conflict in Israel and Palestine by joining international calls for an immediate and permanent ceasefire. So the reason that I've brought this today as background is in December, a local Palestinian man came and called on the council to demand a ceasefire in Gaza. So by bringing this motion, I feel I'm representing our local community who's affected by this and whose families are at immediate risk of imminent genocide in Gaza as we speak. So South Africa has recent experience of apartheid, and they've recently taken Israel to court for acts of genocide, and on Saturday the ruling was made that there is evidence to continue that case. So the International Court of Justice, although they've made that ruling, stopped short of using those very important words, ceasefire. There is a huge Jewish Voices for Peace movement that is speaking out in support of Palestine. There was protests all across the world, but recently in the States, there was in front of the Statue of Liberty, they held up a brilliant banner that said, "Never again for anyone." The facts of today, as of today, because there's a rolling death count, is that there's 26,400 people have died, mostly women and children. 64,400 people have been injured and many more thousand presumed dead, buried under rubble. Over 2.2 million people in Gaza have had aid, electricity and food cut off to them, so they're at risk of, everyone's hungry and they're at risk of starvation. The country's on the brink of famine. So it's really important. Over 50% of the residential buildings have been destroyed. There's only 4 remaining of the 40 hospitals in Gaza. So Why should we care as a little council in southern Tasmania, and why should we have an opinion on this big global issue? Because every voice counts, and I see this as an opportunity for us to raise our hands and say, not in our name, we're not turning away at this point, and every day counts. Around 250 people a day die. So I'd like to commend the Hobart City Council and other councils in New South Wales and Victoria who have taken a public ceasefire stance, brought motions to their council on behalf of their local residents. With this motion, I'm asking for no officer time and for no huge impetus of action. It's just purely us taking a principled stance for peace and saying ceasefire. Why does it affect us personally? Well, there's other reasons. Allowing genocide and war crimes to continue anywhere in the world erodes the protections that are available to us as individuals everywhere in the world. So I'd like to also, at the same time as putting forward my motion, extend my sympathy to our Moona residents who are personally feeling the horrible impacts of this devastating bombardment right now. And future residents, because this is going to leave a trail of traumatised people without anywhere to go back to. So there's a likelihood they'll come to our community, and at that time, I want to be able to say that when we saw this happening, we did everything we could, which is just a tiny little grain of sand pushing in the right direction. But yeah, we didn't let it just go past. We called it out and we said ceasefire. Because a ceasefire isn't a one-sided thing, it means cease fire across the board. And if you don't stand for ceasefire, what do you stand for?
Thank you, Councillor Kendall. Any further discussion? Deputy Mayor.
Yes, I supported the motion for the simple reason that I think it's quite a humble motion. It's not committing us to anything in particular, just calling out some sad realities in the world. I think the tensions in this region have been just a ticking time bomb. I would like to say that I would like the background that has been used for bringing up this motion to be more balanced. I think Israel may not have bombarded Gaza if it had not been provoked by the horrendous attack from Hamas. So I support this motion as the wording as it is only because it is calling out for an immediate and permanent ceasefire. In fact, I would support a permanent ceasefire also for Ukraine and Russia and other conflict areas around the world. Hobart City Council have done it. It's been no great big drama. It's not, you know, we are humans and we're Australians and we should stand by anybody in the other sides of the world as they would do for us should we be in this situation. So I don't think it's getting away from roads, rates and rubbish. It's about care, it's about decency, and all it's calling for is ceasefire and peace. And I believe that's as in our remit as it is roads, rates, rubbish and all of the social good we try to do with people who are disadvantaged or disabled or any of the other issues that got impoverished into Tasmania and Australia and our own region. So thank you, Councillor Kendall, for bringing on this motion.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Alderman King.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Kendall, for bringing this to us, and Deputy Mayor for your comments, and could not agree with you more about a ceasefire. But again, as the Deputy Mayor said, took the words out of my mouth, it doesn't go far enough, it doesn't cover. It just seems too targeted to me. To me, this has been answered in the Mayor's response to questions on notice. I'm 110% supportive of what you're saying here, but it doesn't. Why aren't we talking about Ukraine and Uganda and goodness knows where else at the moment? South America, probably America soon. Who knows? Why aren't we talking about those places? Well, and yes, the preamble was unbalanced to me, which disappoints me a little bit, but I feel your heartfelt concern here. I'm not going to speak for anyone else, but I'm confident that everyone else feels the same thing. We just want to cease fire for numerous reasons. I do feel the Mayor's answered this. I'm supportive of what you've said, but it doesn't go far enough to me. it doesn't allow for the other conflicts, where it's too targeted to one group of people who I care about just as much as the other people. And I do care great for them, I know you do as well, which, again, I don't want to speak on your behalf, but I know how caring you are, and I admire you for that. So that's my, I don't use the word disappointment, in this, that it doesn't go far enough, it doesn't cover those other conflicts if we're going to be supportive of peace.
Thank you, Alderman King. Alderman Alderson.
Okay, I'd like to speak to this motion, but I would also like to foreshadow this motion if it doesn't get up. So I commend you, Councillor Kendall, for your motion, but I too agree with Alderman King that this is only a token motion. It doesn't go far enough. There's no mention in care of the considerable number of Israeli hostages that will not be affected by this ceasefire. They'll still be hostages. It's not going to change Hamas's view on things. We also are being empathetic towards a small section of our community. We're showing no empathy here for the people of Ukraine or the people of Russia. We've had over 200,000 people killed to date in the Ukrainian-Russian war, and a lot more people displaced than would have been displaced in Gaza. I know it's a tragedy what's occurring in Gaza, but let's not narrow this down and define this to a motion that just addresses one situation. What I would like to see happen if this motion is defeated is that we put forward the following motion: that the Glenorchy City Council supports the Australian Government position on conflicts in both Israel and Palestine, Ukraine and Russia, by calling for an immediate ceasefire by all involved, the unconditional release of all prisoners of war, including hostages, and the commencement of peace negotiations. Thank you.
Could I just ask a question there? Could it be added to that and other conflicts around the world? Because
yes, I'm happy.
Again, it's too specific.
I'm happy to amend that, Alderman King. Happy to amend that to...
So other conflicts around
correct,
the world.
yes. Happy to amend that.
That's the case.
We will have the wording come up
Yes.
should this motion not pass. Thank you, Alderman Alderton, for foreshadowing that. That's okay, isn't it, General Manager? Yep. Any further discussion of the motion before us? Alderman Yaxley.
Thank you, Mayor, through you. It's a very sensitive topic, and it's a very sad and awful topic. And wars have gone on. Feels like there's always a war somewhere within the world. And there's something always that tragedies are happening on a daily basis. And I have a personal view and an opinion from what I've heard and read, and I'm not going to share that or make that known now, purely because I feel like I need to make sure that I'm acting my role as Alderman. And for mine is that I don't feel I understand the heartfelt emotion behind it and the reasons behind it, but I don't feel as a council we have control of what the emotion is, and we don't have any influence on that particular war, in my opinion. So as a council, individually I can go and make my thoughts known to the federal government, to voices that support my view and my opinion, but I don't see the vehicle of the council being the right vehicle to use. So I feel we don't have any control or influence, so it makes it very difficult for us to be having an impact. So I would employ and ask that if you have a passionate view to find the right vehicle for that, and whether that's the federal government or whether that's particular voices that are standing up for those human rights, absolutely chase them, influence them, lobby them, and do the right thing. But for mine is that our vehicle isn't the right vehicle to jump on.
Thank you, Alderman Yaxley. Alderman Dunsby.
Thank you. I could not have articulated any better my personal feelings as to what's just been said, Alderman Yaxley. It's not about the issue, it's about the process, it's about the governance for me, and so I will be abstaining from the vote. It's not about the issue, but it's about the process. I will be abstaining from the vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Dunsby. Any further discussion? Well, sorry, Alderman Flagg.
Look, as you know, I was really upset when that young fella came in here and told his story. If you didn't think that was not moving, crikey, that certainly brought it up to the front door. I suppose my concern is, a lot of this is that I think unfortunately, the media's made it, we're going very complacent. And I saw the latest on this, we'll probably see it on the news tonight. And then there'll probably be, just for the sport, something about what's happening in Russia and Ukraine. I mean, it's just, the inconsistency is quite inconsistent. So from that point of view, I feel lean towards what was outlined in that foreshadowed motion. I thought there was some common reasoning in that. I understand Councillor Kendall, the reason you put forward this, you're extremely committed to this. My concern with this one here is it's a very volatile area of space at the present moment, and in particular in social media, around this awful conflict. And I just don't want this explanatory note component to sort of go, and that's got my support, knowledge to it as well, because you say it doesn't happen, these things can happen. So it's on that basis that if it's just the top bit there and without I probably have no problem with it. So it's on those grounds the reason why, obviously I'm all for the permanent ceasefire between both areas there and those other places we named there, but this one is talking about the issue in Gaza. So on that basis, I will be voting against it. But I've made myself very clear the reasons why I'm going to vote against it.
Thank you, Alderman Slade. I've also something to say in relation to this motion. Thank you, Councillor Kendall, for your opening of the debate. I don't think anyone, as Alderman Slade has just said, who heard Mr Shaheen's words when he addressed our meeting, our council meeting last month, could not have been extremely moved at both his own situation, his own personal situation, which he so courageously shared with us, but also the broader context that he spoke about. As I stated in my column in the January edition of the Glenorchy Gazette, Mr Shaheen gave us all pause for thought and really an opportunity to reflect on the many things we take for granted, including the most basic human right of the ability to live in peace. While we face issues here in Glenorchy and certainly have some problems to solve, none of them amounts to waking and wondering whether we will survive today, whether our children will survive today, whether we will need to flee our home, whether we'll see our family members again. And these are the realities behind the news reports of overseas conflict, the loss and the suffering that we arguably don't focus enough on when we see it flick up on the nightly news in between other stories. Mr Shaheen bravely put a Glenorchy face to a conflict that probably feels to most of us that it is a very long way away. I reiterate to Mr Shaheen that whilst I can't imagine the circumstances that he and his family, particularly his family members, are having to live with and overcome in the war-torn area, I genuinely hope they are all safe. The impact of such horrific circumstances justifiably stirs strong emotions in all of us. It compels us to want something to change and change immediately for the sake of Mr Shaheen, a local face, and for his family. I note that in moving this item, as has been mentioned, Councillor Kendall has not indicated any further action required of Council should the motion be passed, and that it simply sits as a statement. I don't believe that any of us need a motion to decry the impact of war. I don't believe any of us need to be any more unified than we already are as a civic-minded human beings to understand that people are suffering and that this is not okay. This is not a situation that should be happening. I believe this is inherent in every single one of us sitting in this chamber. Does Glenorchy City Council need a formal statement to express what I believe each of us already fundamentally believes is right? That conflict, pain, suffering, human loss and the legacy of such tragedy should have no place in any society in this day and age. I'm mindful that as people elected by the people of Glenorchy, we were put here to focus on local issues. And yes, as I've said, Mr Shaheen's address very much brought the toll of pain and suffering on the other side of the globe to our doorstep here in Glenorchy. But are we democratically elected to be making decisions on specific global issues each time one erupts, when, as I've said, we as people fundamentally abhor such impacts, regardless of who is wrong and who is right? I understand that global conflicts are exceptionally complex, and I also understand that bodies such as the United Nations and indeed Australia's diplomatic and foreign affairs officials are tasked with the role of monitoring and working to resolve such matters. And as I noted in the response to Mr. Shaheen's question from last month's meeting, Australia voted in favour of an immediate humanitarian ceasefire in Gaza at the recent United Nations General Assembly, and I recognise that as the most appropriate and effective forum for achieving action on foreign affairs. While I also understand the motivation to be putting up a hand under the badge of the Glenorchy City Council and saying, no, we don't like it either, I feel that this may actually not be showing appropriate respect for such a grievous situation, because in reality we are just making a statement. We are simply not tasked with the resolution of such terrible events. This is an issue that troubles me greatly. The urge to denounce and decry amid such harrowing loss is a powerful motivator, but it is not our remit as a local council. I acknowledge that not everyone will share this opinion, and I accept that. Victorian Premier Jacinta Allen does share this opinion and was critical of the Merri-bek Council for involving itself in the Middle East conflict. Making comment to the Herald Sun, Premier Allen said, "This complex global situation is being negotiated by world leaders, not by local governments. The situation in the Middle East is an incredibly complex one. It's incredibly distressing for many who have lost loved ones, who have families in the Middle East who are being affected right now. Our responsibility," said Premier Allen, "is to ensure that the people in our community who are directly affected are provided with love and care and support, and that there's a particular focus on making sure people in our community feel safe here." Premier Allen's comments really resonate. Following the Merri-bek motion, a councillor who did not support the motion calling for a ceasefire received death threats. Whilst I understand Councillor Kendall's good intent and the motivation behind this motion, I feel disappointed to have been put in this difficult position of having to consider a motion that is outside of our jurisdiction, outside our capacity to influence, and in considering it, could inadvertently cause unintended harm. I'm fundamentally opposed to war. I'm terribly sad about the pain and suffering occurring in the Middle East and the impact it has on people in our local community. Let that be clear. I do care. But because it's outside of our bailiwick and because there is a risk it could inadvertently cause harm, I too am choosing not to participate in the vote on this motion. I will be abstaining. Councillor Kendall, would you like to close debate?
Thank you for all of your positions and in response, I think the harm is already being caused and I absolutely acknowledge our privilege to be able to actually have these debates and feel safe. And I think it's an opportunity for us to show our democratic freedom in being able to raise our hands and say no to ceasefire, say no to genocide and yes to ceasefire. The idea of saying, well, we can't do it about this one thing because then we have to say global peace. I absolutely would support a motion for, I think that's a default-based position that we should all share and we all do, it sounds like. But the pointed intent of this motion, and I didn't reference the actions on October 10 as has been widely denounced every time this topic is brought up, and I'll second that again now, that the taking of hostages is absolutely deplorable, but we also need to look back to the wider context and the longer context back to 1948 and the establishment of Israel and the apartheid state that exists there in Gaza. So it is very close to my heart, and I see this as an opportunity for us to raise our voices and say ceasefire. So thank you for that opportunity, and I appreciate any other elected members that would like to join me in that.
Thank you, Councillor Kendall. I'll put the motion to the vote. Please raise your hand if you are for. That is Councillor Kendall and Deputy Mayor Hickey. Please raise your hand if you're against. That is Alderman Slade.
Well,
Abstaining, isn't it?
yeah.
Yep, that's right. So,
Just not
oh,
the way
right. Yeah. So, that's a bit insulting.
I'm sorry,
Please retract that statement.
Your commentary were a bit insulting.
Well, you could have called it out as a point of order at the
I chose to
time.
let it go.
Well, I find that offensive, what you
All
just
right,
said.
I apologise to you if you take offence.
Thank you. Thank you for your apology. No, well, you've just re-insulted me, so please retract that
No.
and apologise. That was highly offensive to
Well, it
call
was
me
a general
coward.
comment. No, I didn't
You-
call
you
you a
did.
coward. I said abstaining is a coward's way out because you are not standing yea or nay.
You're offending a number of your colleagues then, because Alderman Slade can just
I'll
confirm.
stick to my no.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you, Alderman
I've
Slade.
never abstained ever in council.
Sorry, Alderman King.
I'm a no as well.
So just to clarify, for was Councillor Kendall and Deputy Mayor Hickey, and against was Alderman King and Alderman Slade. The motion is lost. So your foreshadowed motion, please, Alderman Alderton, would you please read it out just slowly so we can have the minute taken noted, unless you've emailed it through?
No, I haven't emailed it through. And I'm happy to include Alderman King's suggestions, so I will read it out as follows. The Glenorchy City Council supports the Australian Government's position on conflicts in both Israel, Palestine, Ukraine, Russia and worldwide by calling for an immediate ceasefire by all involved in these conflicts, the unconditional release of all prisoners of war, including hostages, and the commencement of peace negotiations.
Thank you, Alderman Alderton. Could you please email that through to Emma?
Certainly, yeah.
Emma couldn't get it that quick. Oh, right. Oh, I see. If he emails it, or to Mandy, could you please email it?
No, I can email
Yeah,
it.
yeah, thank you. Just to be clear on what is before us, it would be helpful to have it up on the screen if you can email it to Mandy.
And me.
And Emma, please.
Yeah. So if I email my original motion and you include the reference worldwide, is that okay? Save me typing it out, just speed things up?
Yeah, I'll copy and paste it up and then we can
All right then, not a problem.
email it with it.
Okay, I've just sent that.
Thank you. Just wait a second for it to come up on the screen.
Mayor, can I ask a question? The one in Hobart, did they put theirs up on their Facebook, on their thing when they, what did Hobart do with their outcome?
I'm not sure what the
Okay,
Hobart
thank you.
motion specifically was, if it was to write to.
Yeah, there was a number of actions that came out of it.
See, that's the only thing with this one.
So mine's of the same lines as Alderman Kendall's, just a statement of intent, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
No action required.
Thank you.
Probably just need to add in there, and conflicts worldwide.
And all other worldwide conflicts, yeah.
City Council supports Australian government position on conflicts in Israel, Palestine.
Do you want those countries listed in there, or just all?
I'm happy for you to word it as worldwide, that's fine. Well, that covers everything.
Like so, or get rid of the specific regions?
Well, they're the ones that have motivated us. I think if you leave those in and say.
Leave those in.
Other worldwide conflicts,
Yeah, so if you leave those in and just add, including worldwide conflicts,
all other worldwide.
Yeah.
All other worldwide.
yeah, including all the worldwide conflicts. Happy with that, Alderman
Yeah.
King?
Yeah.
Just the word both is taken out on the second line.
Sure.
Mayor, I'll just ask a question.
Well as.
All the news
Yeah.
refers to it as conflicts in Gaza.
Rather than Palestine?
Yeah, I'm just, everywhere I'm looking, that's all.
The Gaza Strip.
I'm just,
I want to include the
I
West
don't
Bank.
think that's technically correct, because the bombs are landing in Israel as well.
Yeah,
okay, right.
So conflicts, there was something else that's wrong there though, Ukraine and Russia, as well as all other areas of conflict worldwide or something like that.
yeah, happy with that,
All others worldwide doesn't make sense.
Still other worldwide conflicts.
yeah, happy with that.
Moved Alderman Alderton. Anyone to second this motion? Seconded Alderman King. Alderman Alderton.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I put this shadow motion forward because I feel that while I respect and understand and completely agree with where Molly was heading, Councillor Kendall, apologies, was heading with her motion, I just felt it wasn't broad enough. It didn't cover enough of what's happening in the world, and it shows empathy towards a section of our multicultural community. By putting forward this motion, I feel if we are going to support any motions here today, that we are showing that we have empathy towards anybody in the world that's affected by conflict, displaced, or have lost large numbers of life.
May I just make a suggestion? It's for an immediate ceasefire by all involved and that's right, has that just been added? Yeah, thank you, because it didn't make sense, including the unconditional, yep.
Alderman Cockshott.
Thanks, Mayor. I get the intent of the motion. I think I am supportive of it. What I would say, I'm not trying to go down the rabbit hole here, but obviously we're saying the Glenorchy Council supports the Australian government's position. Do we actually know what the Australian government's position is in the Ukraine or Russia? Like, we could be putting this motion up and it could be, we're going to send 1 million troops over, or it could be, we're going to send X money of foreign aid. I don't feel comfortable in my capacity here supporting this, because it could mean anything. I don't know what the Australian government's policy is on the Ukraine and the Russia. Do I personally support it? I'm not too sure. So I'm all for coming across to support those in need, and it's a tragedy what's happening in the world in those areas of conflict, but I don't personally feel I have all the information in front of me to say we as a council back the Australian government's position on those conflicts when I don't exactly know what they are.
What if we had the word current position?
Well, I still don't know what the current position is.
Well, I'm happy to amend it.
Say if their current position was, we're going to implement conscription for the Ukraine conflict and send troops over. Obviously, that's not going to happen. We don't know what we're voting for from that sense. I think it's more.
Can we move it to a workshop?
All this is just asking for immediate ceasefire, and there's no one in the Australian government or opposition who would not want an immediate ceasefire. There's no one that wanted to keep going anywhere around the world. So I think this is not tokenistic. This is based on a starting point from Councillor Kendall, and I don't believe that anyone in the federal, state or backyards would say we want worldwide conflict to keep going, because it affects people in so many different ways, whether it's physically, emotionally, spiritually, financially, etc., etc. I don't have a problem with it. But anyway, that's for everyone to decide.
Yes, we're calling for a support of ceasefire. We're not calling for troops to be sent to the Middle East or
we don't want
Ukraine.
ceasefire.
Okay, this is getting a bit untidy, so can we please stick to meeting procedure regulations? And the motion is before us, it's been moved and seconded, it's being debated. Alderman Cockshott, have you finished your contribution? Thank you. Any further discussion? Alderman?
Sorry, I just do apologise. Mayor, I'm just wondering, would that read better, to the Alderman just put it up, on conflicts in Israel, should it be, instead of and, should it be Israel, Palestine, Ukraine, Russia, rather than and?
Well, the motion is moved and seconded what's before us.
Oh, no, I
We're
understand.
making policy on the run here, which is not ideal, and this is what's before us, this is what we're debating, so thank you for attempting, Alderman Slater.
I'm just trying to get it, that's right.
Yeah. Any further contribution, Alderman Yaxley?
Thank you, Mayor. So I'll go back to my previous comments on the last motion. Is that I feel that we are not the best body to be making statements of this nature. We, while everyone personally, and I can vouch for everyone here from everyone's comments, that we don't want war, but it's choosing the right vehicle, and the wrong vehicle is us, because we have no control, we don't have any influence on any of this, and it puts our council into a position where we will have to be changing on the run if we don't agree with the Australian government's position, we then have to change again, we'll have to have another motion. So I believe is the wrong vehicle, and I'll be abstaining, and it's not cowardly. It's because I believe it's the wrong position. Sorry, it's the wrong vehicle.
Thank you, Alderman Yaxley. Alderman King?
Thank you, Mayor. And again, I accept that it is the wrong vehicle, but I also accept the position of Councillor Kendall and a heartfelt concern for peace in the world. And so I'm comfortable that in essence, and I don't believe this is tokenistic, but I believe that it is saying that we're supportive of our government as a council in wanting peace around the world. And for that, I'm happy to put my name to it in this case. But normally I would agree, well, I do agree with Alderman Jackson, it's not necessarily the vehicle. Council's not the vehicle for this sort of thing. Individually we are, yes, but I'm in this case, I'm supportive of it. It's not like a planning decision where I'm stepping outside of the grounds of planning, etc.
Thank you, Alderman King. Alderman Dunstan?
Yeah, one of my concerns with what we have up there before us is supporting the Australian government position. We have no tools to know or monitor should that position change. We have no expectation of a council officer to do that. So, we're setting something up where our position, we see how it is today, that could change at any other time, and there's no monitoring or anything within the way that's worded up there for me. So I'm not comfortable with it, and I'm going to be abstaining.
Thank you, Alderman Dunsby. Any further discussion? No, I think I made my views quite clear, and the same principles apply to this motion as per my comments on the previous motion. I won't restate them again. Appreciate Alderton bringing an alternative motion and trying to achieve the intent in support of his colleague and Councillor Kendall, but as I say, my position remains the same despite the change. Do you have a question, Alderman?
I just have a question, Mayor, because it could be very important to our organisation as a council. The question is that can we consider this perhaps at a workshop? The only reason I'm saying that, Mayor, is that I've just found, I've only Googled the last 2 minutes, and they call it a joint statement or a statement on how you do these things. And there's one here that honestly, I think everybody around the room would feel so comfortable with. I just think that if we're going to represent 45,000 odd people, can we get this right? That's all. And so I know it's late. I'm sorry, mover and seconder, but can we perhaps, this is really nice words, that can we consider it in a workshop?
As you well know, we tend to have discussions on a range of different things at the workshops and at end of workshops, so I certainly wouldn't be opposed to having a discussion if it's brought, I guess, by us and the information shared by us, rather than requiring council officers to do research in preparation for a workshop. We have said many a times around this table that ideally we bring ideas for motions to workshops prior to bringing them to council meetings for this exact reason. I think the way that the debate's played out tonight has just been evidence of why best practice really is ideally to bring it to a workshop and sound it out with your fellow elected members before bringing it to a meeting, but nevertheless, that's what the legislation allows for, so that's what happens.
Question, I guess and I'm not putting words in his mouth, is suggesting we defer this for the interim rather than let it lapse. Defer it.
I don't want it to lapse.
No, defer it.
No, I don't want it to lapse.
Until we can discuss this further. So this probably isn't the place to have debate. Well, it is a place to debate, but we've got limited information.
So you want Alderman King to put a procedural motion that we defer the item?
I do, Mayor, after Alderman Slade showed me some information that I think it would be far better if we all had a chance to have a further discussion around this. I know there are some that would prefer to vote on it now, and I understand that, but...
So, procedural motion moved, Alderman King, under section 21B. That the matter be deferred, seconded, Deputy Mayor, that the motion be deferred. I'll put the motion to the vote. Please raise your hand if you are for. That is Alderman Alderton, Alderman Slade, Alderman King, Deputy Mayor, and Alderman Dunsby. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The motion is
deferred.
To be deferred, sorry. The deferral motion, procedural motion to defer is carried. Right. Item 16, confirmation of minutes of, oh, no, that's it.
No, that's
Sorry,
it, that's
we
it.
won't move on to there. We will have someone move procedural motion that we go to closed council. Move Alderman King, seconded Councillor Kendall. Please raise your hand if you're for. That's carried unanimously. 5:19, meeting closed. Thank you, Mr. Steenbergen. See you next time. Thank you. Joined us online. We will see you next time.